I'm not that optimistic because what the recent floods may have forced them to release water, but the forcing happened only because their dams were full. And so the water was released into Pakistan at a time of their choosing when they themselves could not manage it. So the lesson is, in fact, might be a mixed lesson is that they can choose the timing or the occasion of when to release water. And also that this permanent closure that they keep threatening uh, is a difficult proposition for them. It might be a difficult thing to do during the monsoon season, but once the monsoon recedes at the end of September, I think the measure of control that the Modi regime achieves, they already have control on the eastern rivers, but they will also have a greater control on the river Chenab, maybe a little bit on Jhelum because of Kishanganga Dam. So it's a mixed lesson, and I think Pakistan has little room for optimism on this account. We were successful in that court of arbitration from The Hague, which gave a very clear and I think unambiguous decision on the fact that India has violated the treaty provisions. Now, the question is very difficult in international law again, because once a country decides to break international law or agreement, how to enforce it. Our options currently are again going to the International Court of Justice, raising it at the UN, from where the Indian government is in full retreat at the moment from the United Nations. I think the correct course of action, which is a little bit in the medium term, is to Pakistan to make a case using media, using international law conferences, and of course, all the instruments at Pakistan's disposal when it comes to advocating water rights in different water conferences, in environmental conferences, in what conferences on the maintaining the rule of law in international relations, just as Pakistan did during its presidency at the UN during July this year. But it's an uphill task of an India that refuses to abide by international law, and it's not that they just the issue of sharing data with Pakistan under the treaty provisions, which they choose not to do, and chose to go through diplomatic channels. It's very clear, and I think there is no, in my view, no ambiguity on any account that India has walked out of the Indus Waters Treaty. The Indian Prime Minister, their ministers keep repeating this. And I've even written about it, that the Indian Water Resources Minister, I think the worst threat came out from him, and he said they will stop every drop of water from the Indus River getting into Pakistan. So it's a big challenge, diplomatic challenge for Pakistan, and Pakistan has to use not just classic diplomacy, but all the instruments of 21st century diplomacy, including social media, including diplomatic conferences, including international law opinion. I think there's something that we have to wage a different kind of campaign in order for India to come back to the Indus Waters Treaty. The issue is that it's something that will keep simmering. And because Pakistan has said so, National Security Council has said that any diversion or stoppage, so these are like two red flags. What happened in Sutlej and Ravi in the last few days was not a red flag. But instead of waiting for a red flag to be raised, Pakistan should be doubling its diplomatic and media efforts worldwide in order to pressurize India. And there are other means at Pakistan's disposal to reach out to India's friends, and they're also there are countries worldwide which are in the same situation as Pakistan is, which are lower riparian countries. So Pakistan should be approaching those also in order to sort of have an informal alliance. When we have disputes between Sudan and Egypt, we have disputes between Spain and Portugal, many, many disputes around the world on upper riparian, lower riparian. So all lower riparian countries like Pakistan are in the same boat. And if India is able to get away with it, then another brick in the wall of international law crumbles, and there's going to be already there are signs of it a free for all, which is in no one's benefit. Because it's a long history of nature humbling great powers, and India is not even a great power. It might be a large middle power, but it's not a great power. But still, it has had to face this issue. And I think I have pointed out earlier that 11 years ago in 2014, despite all the dams and lakes and barrages they have built, if we remember exactly, the city of Srinagar was completely underwater because there was too much water in the Jhelum River. So this idea that India could stop water, try to control water, yes, in many ways it is very dangerous for Pakistan, but it is dangerous for India also. And so, what would be the enlightened way forward for India and Pakistan is to, while remaining within the Indus Waters Treaty, find new ways of shared stewardship of these waters. And again, I've very recently written about this, is to have this is a civilization. The Indus is a civilization, and it is it is thousands of years old, and we are the current trustees of this civilization, India and Pakistan, and for India to go into this hate-filled initiative to stop water is depriving not only Pakistani future generations, but Indian future generations of this very uh, valuable and priceless resource that we would like to pass on to our future generations. The first duty of the government is to become an active custodian of watersheds across the country. And it's just as governments protect roads, right of way, uh, the right of way of water is equally important. And we are now realizing, because of the increasing frequency of very large floods, we saw one in 2010, then 12, there was another one in 14, then 22, and now 25. Is that the usual stance of having these large spaces which are dry in many years. And so, land grabbers look at them hungrily and say that, this is land that could be manipulated into use for commercial gain. But the fact is that whenever these large rivers or watersheds come under flood, these waterways are extremely important. And again, this is not something that is unique to Pakistan. I just read a very deep case study on the three rivers in Chennai, India, and precisely this has happened. That the watersheds, because of encroachments on both sides, become narrow, and whenever there is a flood, then the city by that time has reached that edge, and the city gets flooded. It's also the question of some enlightened legislation in which saying that if there is a commercial encroachment on these waterways, then the government will no longer be responsible for the damages that happened. Although, of course, human life is important and we have to ensure that we save every life we can. But these damages that happen, again, and we have seen in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the repeated devastation that happens at every flood in which these very large multi-story hotels and residences come down. In some villages, there is also this issue. I think perhaps the largest challenge we have is for government and the elected legislatures and parliament to repeatedly sort of say this to the people that climate change is no longer a 10-day emergency in a year. It is an ongoing challenge. It is going to change our crop patterns. It's going to change our rainfall patterns. It's going to change how we deal with nature. And so it's also this question of all of us activating ourselves for 2 weeks in a year as we are doing now. All the government is focused on it. And then everyone goes back to sleep. I think that's a bigger challenge, a more difficult challenge than actually dealing with the floods is to how, even when there are no floods, to act as if there is a flood and try to put in safeguards in preparation for the next flood, which can come at any time. The last thing I want to add is that the nature of floods is also changing. What we are seeing this year is a usual flood in which there is rainfall in the mountains, too much water in the rivers, it overflows the banks and causes flooding. But 2022 was unique in which there was very lesser rainfall in the mountains, but there was massive rainfall in the Sindh province, where usually this kind of rainfall doesn't happen. So the 2022 flood, which affected largely Sindh, came from the sky, not from the rivers. So now we are faced with even a greater challenge of not just looking after the rainfall issues, but where the rain falls and wherever it falls, where, in this case in 2022, there were areas of Sindh, and I visited those areas, which usually are sort of managed and changed over centuries to hold water. Certainly, they have these floods, and now those embankments are holding water and don't know how to get rid of them. So we just have to be. I think it's a very since it is such a large challenge, it is very easy to put it on other shoulders or to ignore it. But the fact is that it's now a continuous, everyday, ongoing emergency. Yes, I think one of the first things that's going to happen is a permanent demarcation and recording of the right of water, just as we have the right of way for humans, we have to make sure that we demarcate it, just as we do our properties. This is a property, the joint property for our future generations that we have to maintain. So once those waterways are demarcated, anything that is in their way, I think will have to be managed in some way. It has to be removed. And those waterways protected for our future generations in order to make sure that these floods, which are in a way an asset for us also. I mean, this is how the land renews itself. It's like, someone has likened it to the river breathing in and breathing out. But this breathing in and out has to have, of course, some legal ramifications. And the very first duty of the government, I think, which is going to happen in the next few months, is a permanent demarcation of these waterways to ensure that there is no encroachment on it in the future. First, we have to, I think now we have an excellent Minister for Climate Change, who's an enlightened human being who knows the issues. So I'm expecting that with Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif's guidance, he will be, first of all, able to Dr. Musaddiq Malik will be able to coordinate with the provinces. Again, provinces have a very large role to play in this. And the two steps which are now well known are enhancing resilience, which is the ability to restore our climate and our natural assets. And the second is mitigation, of how do we mitigate. Mitigation is a difficult job because of the larger societal trends that we have. But we can increase our resilience. One of the things we just discussed is the permanent demarcation of our waterways is to ensure that that is the resilience part, that once the flood comes, we have a proper waterway for it to go through. Yes, it will still cause some damage, but it will be much less damage than we have now, which is totally unplanned. So mitigation and resilience are two very important parts of it. But again, probably the greater challenge is to sensitize not only the public, but the legislators, not only provincial, but national, is that this is something that we have to do. Otherwise, and again, this is a permanent human challenge, not just in Pakistan and not just now, is how to sacrifice immediate gain for longer term benefits. That's the challenge of enlightened policy making. And so the PM has a good team now in place. And if they are able to get provinces on board with this project, uh, it won't be done overnight, but I think very positive, substantive progress can be made in the coming 3 years.